This is the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast with your host, Kevin Murray.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. On this episode, we have a guest from the fantasy sports industry that is as kind and friendly as they come. He's a fantasy analyst at Rotowire, as well as a Sirius XM fantasy sports radio host. It's Jim Coventry. Welcome in, my friend.
So excited to be here. You're doing such great things in the fantasy community. I said off here, bringing people together. As much as you know about fantasy football and the great trophy over your shoulder, man, bringing people together is what this is all about. So thank you.
It is. It's a pleasure being a part of this, and it's an honor to have guys on like you on the show like this. So happy to have you here. So where did it all begin for you? Are you born and raised Chicago?
I was born and raised Chicago. Somebody in my gene pool thought it was great that we pitch our steak here in the sub-zero temperatures and the high humidity summers. But I never had the mindset to actually leave, so I've been here.
So what was it like growing up in the Chicago area as a sports fan?
You know, it was weird because I liked 31, and there weren't 32 teams at the time. So I'm just extra. There were probably 28. But so I'll say I liked every team but the Bears.
Oh, really?
At a young age, I realized they hired buffoons as football coaches. This guy named Abe Gibran, this guy named Neil Armstrong. I thought he flew to the moon or something like this. It was terrible. And then even by the time I'm already 20 years old and they're going to a Super Bowl, they're making this deal out of Ditka. It's Buddy Ryan who got him to the Super Bowl, and they lucked and they stumbled into that one. But anyway, they're trying to do a little better now, but blunder after blunder. I like all 32 teams equally now. I accept the Bears, but yeah. But as a sports fan in Chicago, I was a White Sox fan. It was a losing path, but there wasn't a winning path because the Cubs were on the other side of town.
Yeah, no, that's funny. I'm a Seattle guy, so we didn't have a lot growing up. I mean, we had Steve Largent. I kind of got the tail end of that, and obviously, Sean Kemp and Gary Payton were fun, and Ken Griffey Jr. was amazing, but not a lot of success. So I too kind of at an early age kind of found players. It's kind of one thing that really appealed to me at an early age with fantasy is just I love players. I love finding players that I enjoyed. And there was a lot of Chicago guys that I loved. I loved Frank Thomas for quite some time. I even had a thing with like Mark Grace, probably before Frank Thomas. Obviously, Jordan and the Bulls were amazing. It's the GOAT. But I in the Bears, honestly, the first football season that I was really kind of aware of was that 85 Bears team. So they've always had a special place in my heart. But I can get the frustrations for sure. There's been some downtimes since then. So as a sports fan, what was your worst loss that you've ever experienced?
So when I was a child, I was a Cowboys fan. I guess America's team had some teeth to it or something like this. And they were playing the Steelers in the Super Bowl. Now, they had played one in 76. I'm old, okay? So this is a long, long, long time ago. But they lost that Super Bowl. And then they came back and they played them again 2 years later in the rematch. And Dallas looks like they had it. The vaunted steel curtain defense, the Cowboys had 31 points on the board, and they were going for the win. And apparently he was a Hall of Famer, a tight end named Jackie Smith. Now, I didn't, obviously all the games were televised. And anyway, Roger Staubach sees him. He falls on his back, Jackie Smith in the end zone. But Staubach still feathers the ball in, drops it in his stomach on the ground, and he drops it. And they lose to the Steelers. That was a bad beat for me because as a kid, you're emotional. I mean, I'm not emotional as much, and now that was a tough one.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. And what's your all-time favorite moment as a sports fan?
Very simple. I had season tickets for the entire Michael Jordan experience. I was at every home playoff game he ever played. That's my best sports moment aggregately. Yes.
Oh my gosh! Now that's pretty special. I mean, in the history of sports, it doesn't get much better than that. I love it.
No,
wow.
Dominated every night, and it was back then. Players didn't miss games back then. We see players on the injury report missing games. Jordan was one of the people who said, "The fans need to see me out there. They're coming to see me, so I will go out there." And the dude came out sick. He came out injured. He always brought it. It was just a beautiful thing.
I love it. So when did you discover fantasy sports?
I can't remember how I actually heard about it, But in 1994, I did start my own 10-team home league. Okay. And it started out as a 1-year league. And at the end of the season, we decided to convert it into a keeper league. And then we morphed it into a contract league where whenever you had a player, you automatically assign them to a contract length of 1 to 8 years. And then we had like what we call it an exemption tag, where you could either cut one player or re-up a player each year. That league lasted for like 20 years, but we took stats from the USA Today newspaper. The internet was kind of new, to me at least. Lineups were called into me. I called my lineup into an opponent to ensure fairness. But yes, that's the way it was back in 1994.
For sure. Now, I first started playing in 95. It was like a sporting news challenge, right? So same kind of thing, right? You're calling in the lineups. But it was a little tricky with that one, but that was a kind of a rotisserie style deal. But then I finally got into like a real league the next year, and paper newspapers and calling in the commissioner. That was fun. Those were the diehards, the people that loved fantasy back then, for sure. Do you remember like whose content you consumed when it comes to fantasy content back in the day?
John Hansen started out doing his stock watch on ESPN, and I remember that column. Hansen was great. He is great. I mean, he's still not. He still is great. But back in the day, he was just churning out great content when there was hardly any others. And then early in the fantasy football experience, I stumbled upon Football Guys and have enjoyed with the work that they did, Joe Bryant and the team. And then the other one, though, this is a big part of it. Injury news was really difficult to come by. Steve Cohen, and I believe to a degree at some point, Adam Kaplan was involved with it, footballinjuries.com. And I would get a faxed injury report like on Thursday or Friday from them, going over with their take on what players, status would be on the given Sunday. That was gold.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. There wasn't, Stephania Bell out there doing that kind of stuff and trailblazing a path towards injury analysis. So it was gold. Definitely something that was overlooked. There wasn't a lot of news about it back then. So to find a resource like that must have been gold. I love it. So now you played in some national contests, had some success back in the day. Tell me about that experience.
So it was in 1996. So I had been playing fantasy football for 3 years, and I used to read the baseball and football digest magazines. I'm sure they're not around anymore. Maybe they are, but I doubt it. And in those magazines, there was a contest challenge, and it was from the APA game company. People might know Stratomatic baseball and football from back in the day if you're older. Well, APA was a game I played growing up, but I saw the challenge, and it was a real simple. We've seen similar ones since. They will have like 12 categories of players, and each category has a box, and there are like 5 players in each category. You pick one player in each category. You're allowed like 9 roster moves a year that had to be done on a telephone. And so anyway, though, it was $16 to buy in. The grand prize was $5,000. I almost led wire to wire. I fell out for a week at one point, and it was crazy because you'd call in every week and they would give you the leaderboard, like the top 10. And it was like Christmas Eve that year when it was like the end. And to hear that I had won that at that time, everything was low stakes, right? But to have won that, oh my gosh, I was stunned. It was just crazy.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I can see why that would definitely get you hooked if you weren't already hooked, for sure, right?
Man, return on investment there was insane.
yeah, keep that up.
Yes.
So when it comes to playing fantasy, the game, like what do you love most about the fantasy football experience?
So obviously we talk about people a lot, and it really has become that. I love competition. I was a competition junkie. I played baseball through college, and when I got out, played a lot of basketball and was probably a little too competitive for my own good. And then my back started to go. I ended up needing back surgery down the road, but I couldn't really compete like that anymore. Fantasy football became an outlet for competition. But I'm glad I in a way, I mean, obviously I love to compete, but I outgrew that sickness part of it because there was a sickness. I was competitive to a sickness level, and that went away. But when that went away, it uncovered what I talk about, the people in fantasy football. And I had my home league, but I started to make friends, obviously online, as I branched out into different leagues and different opportunities. You met people, and it became, because you know how this works. When you have a common interest, those are some of the best friendships in your life. And so that is really what it became about. And to this day, like I said, I repeat, we love to compete, but man, without the people, it ain't worth it.
Yeah, it's true. And I think that, when you're talking about like a single league, that camaraderie amongst the 10, 12 people is so special. And then, community wise, it's the same kind of thing. It comes down to the people in the end, doesn't it?
100%.
Now, do you have a league that you consider your primary home league?
So that league I told you I started in 94, it stayed together about 25 years. I'm the one that left. And I became deeper and deeper into the industry, and my workload was going way, way, way up. And there was that. But the other thing that was a bigger deal was that the people in the league, the people turned over, throughout time. And I realized there was no connection between us anymore outside of the actual league itself. And so at that point, they became more acquaintances than friends, which is weird, but it just happened. People have their families, they have their lives, they can move on to get on. And in that particular league, it just became, okay, I don't have enough of an emotional friendship connection to this league to keep this going. So now my home league, it's the Kings Classic. It's that room with those people in the Jim Brown division, and I just so I don't miss names, I'm not gonna say any names, but they're all people that I know well. They're on the airwaves with me, and I love them. That's kind of my home league now.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Obviously, dynamics change in a long-standing league like a 25-year home league, and especially if the faces change too, that changes. And then something special like the Kings Classic, we'll get into that a little bit. But I can see why you would adopt that as your bread and butter, your favorite league out there. I love it, and that obviously that's a live draft that takes place at the Canton, Ohio, at the Fantasy Football Expo. There's nothing like that live draft experience.
No.
Did you have a lot of live drafts back in the day with that home league? What makes a great live draft?
Yeah, back in the day, it was great, those live drafts, because basically, remember, we didn't have, again, those who are newer to the fantasy football, back in the day, there wasn't much information. You really had to scour for stuff. And so you'd have these drafts, and they weren't automated. You were writing names down as you went. And so somebody would draft a player. Oh, he was gone 3 rounds ago. And you'd have so much fun, busting somebody over, the mess ups, or calling them out on picks and saying, oh, what a dumb pick that was, with friends, of course, and you did it all in good fun, and everybody loved each other for it. And that was the great part of that live draft. Now it's a little different. There's so much more information out there. And if they're not your close friends, you're not going to say anything. You wouldn't speak to your, industry friends like you would your closest friends. But there's great banter still during those drafts. You still have, and I know you sat in on like the one that in Canton, and just about half of the room will banter, and it's fun. That can't be replaced.
Yeah, for sure. Witnessing that was a ton of fun. Have you seen a lot of like last place punishments out there? I mean, it's one way to make leagues fun. Do you have any favorite all-time last place punishments that you've seen?
And I hate to keep bringing the same league up over and over, but the worst one is the Kings Classic. It's relegation. If you are the worst team in the league, you're bumped down. Now, there's great analysts in that league too. They're no better or worse than the ones that are in the league I'm in. But the fact of, if you are getting bounced down, I would almost rather not lose the league than win the league. Usually the goal is to win your league. Yeah. The goal here, I don't want to lose the league.
Yeah. And now, is that determined based off the final, the standings at the end of the regular season, or does it go into the playoffs?
So it's regular season. It's a combination of there's an auction and a snake draft. So there's points scored in each league, record in each league. Whoever between those, there's that formula of 14th place. You get a point for whatever. That's how it kind of gets determined.
Yeah, and that is as brutal as it gets. I mean, obviously, a bad tattoo is pretty permanent and awful. But when you love your league and you get bounced out of it, and then you actually have to win in another league, which is not easy.
Nope.
It's a good set of competitors in that league too to get back in. Like even like Bob Lung, the creator of the league got bounced last year, right?
And I told Bob this. I go, I hate relegation, not because you get bounced. Here's why I hate it. Because in a tough league like that, I really want to swing for the fence. I took a very risky second round pick this year. I took Jonathan Taylor in the second round of a 14-team league, knowing he may not play. But it's like, if I want to win this league, I have to make bold moves. But if those backfire on you, so it's almost like, and this year, look, I'm not gonna get relegated. I was close this year because I had a lot of injuries, ancillary injuries, the Jonathan Taylor mistake, and it's almost like, I don't know. I may just go with the layups next year. You know what? And if I happen to win, I win. But I don't want that stress of being, in contention for being bounced. Just like I said, I just don't want to. That's a brutal one, like you said.
It's true. No, maybe you want to have a safe draft, a draft with a high floor, and then just let your roster management during the year, dictate your end results. However, in a 14-team league, there's not a lot of action there, right? So
no,
it's
three flex spots, 4 IR spots, which only means you miss a game. If a guy's out on Sunday, IR spot. So last year we used to joke, the second page of waivers, Todd Gurley. Well, he has been out of the league for 3 years.
I love it. I can see why you love that league for sure. Who's your biggest rival in fantasy football? Someone that you are going to face that you really want to take down.
Really, there's two. I know age demographic. Bob Harris and I are about the same age. I don't know that Howard's in the same age group, but he's probably not terribly, terribly far off. Maybe 8-10 years. Those two. The grizzled vets like myself, we're in a lot of the same leagues. I consider them, and they're the best of the best. And we have so many best of the best. But because of the age, we're established men, we're a little older. So yeah, I think that kind of makes them my rivals.
That's good. The most fun to beat and the most painful to lose to.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Do you have favorite settings, favorite formats in fantasy?
The one thing I always say is this: the more lineup spots, the better. I love 3 flexes. I love 14 teams. Add teams, add flexes, because I think it lowers the luck factor. Sometimes it's going to hit no matter what, but the smaller the league and the smaller the settings, a lot of times the luck factor doesn't mean luck factor wins a lot of times. I think it wins less when you make the league more challenging.
That's a good point. A lot of people will look at luck and maybe do median scoring, or which I had some conversations about that recently. And the thought was, the live and die aspect of fantasy, the head-to-head, the one matchup, everything's on the line is what is the experience is all about. So median scoring kind of takes away some of that. Whereas something like that, where you're adding more roster spots, larger rosters, larger leagues, you're kind of doing the same thing when it comes to mitigating luck, but you're not necessarily tinkering with other things. You're still playing the game and setting your lineups.
And I have one more thing. In my home league, here's how the way we set this up, because I really hate the luck factor. I detest it being about luck. So we would play 11 weeks of doubleheaders, 22 games in the hopper through 11 weeks. And the bye weeks weren't as crazy late as they are now. But anyway, we would then go 2 out of 3 in the semifinals. Only 4 teams made the playoffs. And then 2 out of 3 for the finals. It wasn't adding up points over the 2 weeks. It was literally 2 out of 3. You win 2 games, you advance. If both teams swept the 2 games, you would play the 3-game series for the finals a week earlier, than scheduled. But we still avoided the last week of the season. We avoided that. But to me, that was great, because in my mind, often the best team won.
That's good. Yeah, I like that more than just full on median scoring or all play. So that's a cool way. You got a couple matchups, I like that. That's creative. That's fun. And anything, again, you can do to limit to reduce the luck factor is good. You just got to be careful with how it affects the overall experience. So I like that. So when did you start getting into content creation in fantasy?
It was 2007. And I was a school teacher for a few decades, and so I loved that. But what happened was I met the woman who's now my wife, and when she realized I watched football all day on Sundays, her line was, well, you're going to have to make some money doing that if you're going to watch football on Sundays. And this ended up being a watch what you ask for, you might get it for her but her idea was, well, why don't we go to Barnes and Noble? Again, this is like back in the day still. So go look at some magazines and see like, different companies out there. I knew some, but what I wanted was contact information, and wasn't easily available on the internet like now. It was different. It still was a long, 15, 16 years ago. And so it went in the back, and I would find some like contacts for the company. And so I reached out to a few different places, and actually I reached out to John Hansen. And basically I told him I'd won a national challenge and I was an English teacher. I could write. I go, can I write for free for the season? And just to get some stuff out there. And he was great. He said that was great. And so that worked out. Now, what happened was I did ask him through an email if I could work with him the following season and have a job. Well, what happened was he was merging Fantasy Guru with Adam Kaplan with football injuries. And so I assumed John didn't get back to me. And I assumed, oh, well, they probably are covered. They're not going to need me. Well, what happens then is, okay, I cold call, probably 15 different companies at that point. And Draft Sharks took me on. And I was with Draft Sharks, Lenny Papano, Jared Smola, 2008 to 2016. So really nice run with them. Great people. Loved the time with them. But what happened was after I took the job, John Hansen had gotten back to me. He was slow getting back the emails. It was like really slow, but it all whatever works out for everybody. Everyone was happy in the end. And then 2016 Draft Sharks, just whatever my work started to diminish a little bit, didn't have as much. And then so I started looking around. Rotowire brought me on, and man, I'm so happy. Every company I've been with has been great, but it's been Rotowire ever since.
That's awesome. And how about your experience with SiriusXM? How's that been?
That was, and I know you put it in the show sheet, the rise in the industry. It was SiriusXM. I mean, I know the preferable time spots for people are on the weekdays, but I think a lot of people listen on the weekend. On the weekdays, I know, if you're happen to be on your commute or, but on the weekends, a lot of people just might have it on as background noise. And it was just, look, I first want to point out this. Anybody that takes a minute out of their day to listen to me, I'm grateful to you. Without the listeners, the viewers, the friends, I'm nothing. And to know that when I go to a place like Canton for the expo, and the fact that people actually know me without me introducing myself, I don't take that for granted. I don't take it lightly that people care enough about me to want to say something to me or to appreciate my work or to join the live streams or to listen to the show. So how that happened with XM though was, this is weird how this happened, because I'm with Rotowire about a year and we have our annual trip to Vegas. And I speak to our media guy and I said, I feel like our podcasts need to get beefed up a little bit. Just the content maybe just a little bit lacking. And what he ended up saying was, he said, well, you know what? I got something better. And he had a Sunday slot on XM open. Now, at the time, this is just July and August, because we'd lose our Sunday spot when regular season are, because they do game coverage on XM. So it was July and August. And so it was very, very depressing. All of a sudden you do 2 months and you're done. But a couple of years later, they added me to the Saturday show. Then in the last couple of years, XM was gracious enough to give us a game day morning Sunday spot. So now it's Saturday and Sunday from July through February. But it has just been amazing. Just the people I've gotten to know from this, wonderful people.
That's awesome. And one thing about you're a published author, right? You wrote a book back in the day. Tell me about that experience.
So it's just been one of these life things, one was called The Secret of Life. And I actually did a second one. It's online only, though. I did a second one, The Marriage Secret. And it's just been, people commonly deal with the same stuff. It's just packaged a little differently. And I guess the boil the premise down to just one simple thing. If we're in a relationship, if we could put the other person first on their terms, not on our terms, the way it's important to them, if both people do that, you're going to have a winner. That's the whole premise.
That's good. No, that's beautiful. And obviously relationships are important personally and within a community like the fantasy space. Tell me about your experience at the expo. And I guess when it comes to like the community, how much the community has meant to you over the years?
Yeah. When this started out, Bob Lung, just God bless him. I mean, the perseverance the man has. The first year we went to Canton, it was just the King's Classic. It was literally, there were 12 team leagues. There were 24 of us, and that was it. And it was a weekend. Some XM people came out. The next year, Bob started the expo. Obviously, the first year of anything, it's small, right? So a few people came out, but you could tell he was building something, right? And then COVID hit, of course.
Yeah.
And then, but after that, it was like all of a sudden, all these different people who are coming out to Canton for this fun weekend based around football. Like I said earlier, everybody's got the common interest. Everybody knows you start with football, and then wherever you go from there, you go from there. And so now going there are people who you hadn't obviously personally been around since the last time, so you get to catch up, and there are new people you meet, and the energy and the positivity and the excitement. And you know what, Kevin, most people in this industry are humble and they're kind. I'm sure there's exceptions. I rarely see it. And just to know that people are happy to see each other, it's a beautiful weekend.
It is for sure. And like you said, the common interest, it brings all these people together, people from every background you can imagine, from every corner of the country and the world. There's people coming internationally, obviously. So such a special event that Bob Lung puts together, the Fantasy Football Expo. It takes place every August in Canton. So special. What's your favorite event at the expo? I would imagine you're probably going to say the King's Classic draft.
I know, and I'm sorry. I really apologize, but it really is such a spectacle. And XM's in the room and they're broadcasting it. And some of us come over and we'll put the headphone on and we'll talk to them and we'll do some interviews about it. And it's just the camaraderie. We've had turnover with relegation and things like that. And some years, some people can't make it, but the core is there, and that is the highlight, because that's like the family dinner. It's like you have the great weekend with all the people you love, but then you got the family dinner in the small room, and it just goes back to that. So yeah, that has to be my highlight.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I had the privilege of running those draft boards this year. So much fun to be around all you guys and experience the Expo at its best, at the King's Classic. The auction draft, that's wild. Auction drafts are crazy, especially in a 14-team league. I mean, those are intense. And then the trash talk in between, the bidding. Corey Parsons was amazing as the auctioneer. Talk to me about that auction draft, the difference between that and then the normal redraft league.
You know what? Snake drafts are boring. They're fine and they're great, but they're not the auction. This is poker. This is poker with football players. That's basically what it is. You're playing people, you're playing the room, you're worried about the players, and you've got to manage a budget. And there's this crazy energy in the room. And I can't even quantify what it is. It's a crazy energy. And people are guarded. Some people are very guarded and very closed in because of that. And other people just kind of let it loose. And I'm one of those that let it loose. And we had fun at the last one because I remember I purposely don't pay up for the highest players, because in 3 flexes, 14 teams, I don't want a bunch of guys with 1 and 2 points on my team. I want guys that are scoring, double digits. So we were going along, and Jeff Ratcliffe calls me out, and he did it 2 years in a row, actually. This year he's like, your money doesn't collect interest if you leave it sitting there. And I thought that was a great line. But funny enough, the next player that came up was DJ Moore, and I really wanted DJ Moore on my team, and I had an amount I'd bid. Well, guess who wanted him? Jeff Ratcliffe. And so apparently now this is the story, and I don't know. Multiple people told me this, but Jeff really wanted DJ Moore, and apparently he was staring me down. And I was oblivious of it, because literally I'm just like looking at my computer and I'm looking up at the screen and I'm just throwing out the next number because I know where I'm stopping. It's not personal to me. It's like I know I'm going to this amount to get this player, and if it stops, it's mine. If it doesn't, it's his. And apparently they said, yeah, he was like, shoot me the death stare. And okay, I didn't realize I was getting it, but that's funny. I love Jeff. I think that was awesome.
That's good. Now, and you won in 2021. You were the champion.
Oh, that was that?
Huge. Yeah.
And the reason it was, all right, I've won leagues where I've squeaked in as the 6th seed, and I was happy I won. And this was the year where for me, I call it the Triple Crown. I had the most points, I had the best record, and I sailed through the playoffs. And the biggest one was, so the thing that people think I'm crazy with is that I do not check my fantasy scores until Tuesday morning.
Tuesday? Wow, okay.
I wait till the games are over. I want to sleep. I want to sleep Monday night. Game's over. I go to sleep. I wake up in the morning, I check my scores. And the reason being is, look, we're in a lot of leagues. I might need this player to get 20 points. Well, my opponent, I don't even check who my opponents have. I don't even know who's on their rosters because I don't want to be worried about, I want to learn the games. I don't want to be rooting for points all night, right?
No.
So anyway, the day of the championship game in the Kings Classic, I'll use Eastern time. It's about 4:15 on Sunday. I'm playing Dave Richard and my phone rings. Oh, it's Dave. All right. What's going on, Dave? He goes, congratulations, you won. I go, dude, I don't check my scores till Tuesday. Well, the one thing I did know about his team is I knew he had Jamar Chase, and I knew Jamar Chase had 56 points against Kansas City, and yet that team won. But it was that point I told you about building the auction team. When I built it, there were no high-priced players. Everybody was, moderately priced, but I had a lineup that was top to bottom, injury luck, of course. And my two big ones that year that really hit was I got Cooper Kupp for $25. That was the Superman season. And I told people walking out, I go, you might laugh at me, but he's going to be a top 5 receiver this year. I undershot that. And I was literally fully believing that was the year for him. And then the other one was $9. I got James Conner. Now, he missed some time in the playoffs, but James Conner was a beast. But that whole lineup, it was like I had a bench, and you don't have benches in these leagues. I had a bench. Yeah. So when players missed, I had somebody to put in, and it was a top to bottom team. Kupp obviously had the Superman season, but everybody else scored.
I love it. No, I mean, sounds like a perfect roster construction. Definitely a team to remember and to celebrate even a few years later. I love it. Now with the I was going to say sorry, I was going to add a question. I'll edit this. This is a good question, I thought. Escaped my mind. Okay. Name someone who you look forward to really spending more time with at the Expo in 2024.
Oh, there's so many. And you know what? And here's the thing. I really make it a point. I want to, if I'm only gonna have a few minutes with you, I want it to be quality time. I try to get to know something about you. So, and then the people who I do get to know, I do try to keep up with them a little bit in the off season or regular season. So I wish there was one answer for that, but there honestly isn't, because I do try to make it a point to kind of keep up. So it's the entirety. It's everybody. It's whoever's going to be there. And I wish that it's a lame answer, but that's how I feel.
No, that's a good answer, and I can see that. I mean, you stand out in the room. Your energy, the way you engage, the smiles, it stands out, and I can see that's what you're doing. You're just trying to soak it all in, get to know people, make new connections. So I love that about you. I love that about the event. It gives everybody the opportunity to meet new people. I've seen so many relationships formed at the Expo, business relationships, jobs, people getting there. So it's a special event. Highly recommended that you go. And I was going to say one more thing about the Kings Classic. Like your champions should get, if you win the championship, you should be exempt from relegation. How about that? Would that be
yes.
good? Right? So you honor the champions by protecting them. I mean,
yes.
It's probably too late to implement something like that, but just makes sense. Like you win the championship one year, but you also get protection.
That makes sense. And I don't think anybody who's been bounced to this point has won a championship. I don't think anybody did. So, but yeah, I love that. But I tell you what, normally, I'm not one for like hardware, but that belt over my shoulder, dude, I love that belt.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that should be appreciated and celebrated. Because I mean, you're talking about the best competition in the country in a league like that. So, and it's cool because there's a lot of industry leagues where people just kind of play. It's for real. Like you guys are seriously involved in that league and want to win that at all costs. So happy for you. Happy that you get to experience that, and for everybody that it's cool that Bob has created more Kings Classic type leagues and stuff. So I think there's so many people that have been brought into that Kings Classic family, which again, it's just fun to witness. So if you're at the Expo, going to check that out is highly recommended. Let's dive into some rapid fire questions. I'll just kind of throw out a question. You tell me what first things that come to mind. What do you enjoy most about what you're doing right now in the fantasy industry?
It's really the XM show. I just, the energy and the dynamism of that. I just, the adrenaline rush I have when I'm on there. But I also picked up a daily live YouTube show for Rotowire. So to a lesser degree, that, but yeah, it's the XM league for sure.
That's good. What's been your biggest challenge in the industry over the years?
Video editing, social media content. So people see good videos from me. I'm not editing those. Brian Burns is editing those. He was an XM producer, works for Rotowire a bit now, but I have to figure out how to do this on my own. I'm a dinosaur, but this is the big challenge, and I'm going to work on it this offseason.
I love it because I always see your videos and clips. I'm like, man, he's doing it right.
Nope. Brian Burns.
Oh, there you go. What are your favorite hobbies and activities outside of fantasy sports?
Exercising, go to the gym 6 to 7 days a week. It's 7 days a week in the off season, during the season on Sunday, because the XM show's on early and I literally work all day Sunday. I can't go Sunday, but that's probably the one hobby that I have, because that's pretty inclusive. And just overall, like when I could do yoga in the off season, that's part of it. Meditation. So there's a lot of that just to kind of keep my mind and my body strong. Those are really important for me. That's kind of my hobby activity.
I love it. What's the last TV show that you binged?
Jack Ryan on Amazon Prime. I was behind. I'm on season 3 only. There's 4 seasons, so I'm catching up to all of those. So yeah, that was it.
All right, you're currently in it. I love it. Do you have an all-time favorite TV show?
I do. I'm one of those superhero nuts. So Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it went like 7 years, and there were like 120 episodes, and I didn't watch them until like a year ago. My daughter and I, they were all on Disney Plus. So we got through like 120 episodes, but that's my favorite show. I love that show.
That's good. How funny is it that Matthew Berry was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent? Like, it all comes together.
Yes.
What's your all-time favorite movie?
It's hard for me to move up of Shawshank Redemption. Oh man, that movie, it was just, it made me think about life so much. Get busy living or get busy dying. That's the quote that I remember from that. Wow, it was just, that movie was amazing.
That's good. How about a sports movie? Do you have a favorite sports movie?
Oh man, you know what? Remember the Titans. I still get goosebumps when the defensive coach, and I wish I remembered his name, says they will remember forever the night they played the Titans. And he goes, don't let them gain another yard. And then they had that montage of them just smoking people at the line of scrimmage. And then Julius just pointing his finger at somebody. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I got goosebumps right now. That's the movie.
I love it. I love it. How about a holiday movie? Do you have a favorite holiday movie?
Yes, 100%. Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Turbo Man, and Phil Hartman. Phil Hartman is so funny in that movie. But that is it every year. And that movie's on Disney Plus now too, because you used to have to find out where I was going to get it. And now I just queue it right up. Actually, my daughter and I started watching it the other night. We got through about half of it, and then we had something to do. But that's the one.
All right, we'll have to put that on the calendar here. We love the holiday movies, and I've seen that before, but I think we got to put that into the rotation. What do you love most about what do you enjoy most about living in Illinois?
Man, it's tough these days. I mean, taxes are insane. Illinois, it's bad. Crime and tension are through the roof. It's not the fun place it used to be. So, I mean, the fact I call it home is probably about it. I need to get out. So, bad answer. I try to be positive, but not so happy right here, right now in Illinois.
Hey, that's an authentic answer. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But Chicago's got pizza. Do you have a favorite pizza place in Chicago?
Yes, as long as you don't go to the newer franchise locations, Lou Malnati's. If you go to the original stores, those are the ones. That's the best pizza in my mind in Chicago. They call it gourmet pizza in the pan. The franchise ones, and I used to work in the pizza business for a little while, and the franchise ones, I'm going to call them out on this. What they're doing is they're using day-old dough, because when you get their pan pizza, it doesn't rise correctly. It's flat. And that's because the dough sat an extra day. And the franchise places are looking to cut some costs. And I talked to corporate about it, and I got nothing back from them. But got to go to the original Luma, like the one. There are 3 like original locations. Those are the ones you got to go to, because they'll do it right for you.
I love the insider knowledge on that. So if the dough doesn't, I like it. That's good. That's good. So without any bias, like, are you like Chicago pizza or New York pizza?
You know what, Chicago pizza. I mean, it's not. I haven't had big exposure to New York pizza, but we have so many good pizzas in Chicago. I mean, I couldn't even see a place giving us a battle.
I love it. What's your favorite place to go on vacation?
Paris. Been there twice.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people will say, "Oh, they're rude to Americans." Not true. I think they may be rude to Americans if Americans come in just blurting out English right away, expecting them to default. If you make an attempt to say some introductory words, they know you're English, and they flip right over to English to help you. And they're very gracious. But I think if you go in saying, "Well, you're going to change because of me," I think that you're pushing that response.
Exactly. You know, you always want to respect the culture and the surroundings you're at, right?
Yes.
So what's one thing that you're just deeply grateful for at this time?
It comes down to people again, you know. I mean, health, obviously. I'm 58 years old, and I'm very, very fortunate as of today. I'm in very good health. I try to do my part to help that, but I know that that's not always the deal. Fate could be a very rough thing. So I am very grateful for my health, but it's people. It really is people. And like I said earlier, there are people who make me part of their day, their lives, their football experiences. And those people, I am eternally grateful to them. And I don't work. This is not work. I work my tail off, but I don't work. This is football. I'll grind statistics. I'll grind film. Doesn't matter. It's not work. What I get back from the community for all I do, it's not work.
I love it. That's a beautiful thing for sure. Now that's obviously there's a lot to be gracious about and have a lot of gratitude. Now let's talk about some ungrateful things when it comes to the 2023 season. Are there some players that have disappointed you? Some players that you really expected big seasons this year and they just didn't come?
Kevin, first disappointment before the players are the Zebras, the officials.
Oh,
we are back to 2012 football levels of scoring, and nobody could have accounted for that. And the penalties that are stunting drives, the extra holding calls, the ineligible downfield, it's been bad. And that's put a drag on a lot of fantasy performers. But yeah, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, we all thought that didn't matter who he has out there, he's going to be Superman. He hasn't been Superman. They're winning games most of the time, but that's been a huge disappointment.
Yeah, it's definitely a different vibe in Kansas City. You know, obviously that affects everything. Kelsey, I mean, I can see that. You'd love to see like Tyreek Hill on that team, right? Like how you let him go. It's just it's mind blowing because such a huge piece to the puzzle, and he's gone. And you know, hopefully they can figure something out because I love seeing them do well. You know, I'm not a hater on Kansas City. I love when they have success. I wish them the best, but yeah, it's been a struggle, hasn't it?
It has. There are 3 running backs that have been disappointed. Austin Eckler, I don't know if it's injury recovery. I don't know if it's age. He's 28, but that's at that point. And with no Mike Williams, defenses are compressing. He has not looked good. And next one, I know he's had 2 good games in a row, but Derrick Henry, I mean, overall in the course of the season, it's just the no offensive line. And again, Superman can only overcome so much. And his snap share is low. It's in 40s a lot of weeks. And then Tony Pollard, that's my other running back. It's like he scored a touchdown in 3 straight weeks, but good luck getting 100 scrimmage yard week. Kevin, I talk about this, and I talk about this in the preseason. There were 2 things. First thing was his offensive coordinator last year had mentioned there was a game against Chicago where he had this long run in the 3rd quarter. And then he went to the coach. He said, Stump Mitchell was the coach. And he goes, "I'm done." And the coach just took a second to process that. Pollard played 1 more step. He was legitimately done for the game. He had given what he had. And then Stump Mitchell said, he's like a race car. You got to use him so much, so well. And then that's it. And then the second, so I was concerned about that. And the second thing was, you always see the change of pace backs do great. I believe defenses play at the speed of the lead back. You can't just flip a switch and say, okay, the fast guy's in, we got to play fast. Muscle memory, you're playing it. And then when that fast guy comes in, we saw the heavy yards per carry, yards per reception. He's an ordinary back this year.
Yeah, I know it's crazy when you invest draft capital like that. You want to have some return, and so those guys have definitely fallen a little bit short. And if they get hot now, what they've done for you to kind of get you to this point is most likely not get you to the playoffs. So
Nope.
these are performances that are happening that might not have an impact on bringing home that trophy, that championship. So good players to mention in that spot. Now the fantasy playoffs are upon us. Let's put together a lineup, like players that you want to have on your fantasy rosters during this playoffs. Like, name one quarterback that you think is going to bring home a championship.
I know these are quick hits. When we did the drafts this year, we were all taking those top 6 or 8 quarterbacks early because we thought they gave us leverage on the field. That didn't happen. If you don't have Josh Allen, maybe Jalen Hurts, you've got everybody else. So Josh Allen, as bad as the interception's been, fantasy-wise, he's been the guy.
Yeah. How about a couple of running backs that you think will bring home championships this year?
How do you go away from Christian McCaffrey? The running back field's been down, but it doesn't matter with him. And he's avoided injury now 2 straight years, knock on something. But yes, obviously him. The next one, it was close because, again, there have not been great weekly producers at running back. It's a real close between Kyren Williams and Alvin Kamara. Williams, they're running this duo scheme right now where it's downhill, quick run. That is taking advantage of a lot of the zone defense concepts. McVay is a genius. Is a genius. He has gotten Nakua playing at great level. He's got Kyren Williams on. Don't know how he does it, but I'd probably say Kyren Williams slightly over Kamara.
Yeah, it's impressive what they're doing there, and he's played well. I remember grabbing him last year as a kind of a flyer,
yes.
Right? And not loving what I saw, and so I kind of just passed on him this year. And sure enough, other people in my leagues are thriving while I'm just trying to fight and get in. How about a couple wide receivers that you think that will really impact final standings and championships this season?
Hey, I've got to give Mike McCarthy a lot of credit for a coach that I thought would be static. I think he realized we don't have a sustaining running game. We have to pass the ball, and we have to find a way to move CeeDee Lamb around the formation. And they have isolated him on the mismatches frequently. So CeeDee Lamb is the dude right now, but not any less than him. Tyreek Hill, who's probably going to get 2,100 yards this year, and he's only playing about 60% of the snaps. He sits out a lot. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's definitely a league winner. And what tight end do you think will be on the most fantasy football championship rosters this year?
You know what? TJ Hockenson. Kelsey is not putting up big numbers. Hawkinson's target volume is through the roof. And look, Jefferson's coming back, and I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be Nick Mullins or it's going to be Joshua Dobbs. But I think that offense is such that TJ Hockenson is going to keep seeing near double-digit targets. That gets it done.
There you go. These are players that hopefully you have on your rosters because we're about to enter those playoffs and things are about to get serious. Now, obviously, your journey in the fantasy industry is you've kind of talked about a lot here. Can you name some of the people that you feel like have just had a massive impact on you during your time in this industry?
Yeah, I'll just mention 3. Bob Harris. What I love about Bob is that Bob has a massive platform. Bob brings as many people into that platform as possible. Obviously, I have 1% of the platform Bob has, but when possible, I do try to bring other people in. I learned from his example there about making everybody a part of it. So if I ever have a bigger platform, I will bring in way more people than I do now. Dave Richards, another one. Dave Richard is such a genuine person. If he knows you're dealing with something, he reaches out to you, to checks on you. Aside from being a dynamic fantasy manager and analyst, he is just an amazing human being. I give Dave Richard a ton of credit. And then Marcus Grant's another one. Marcus Grant is somebody who, we talk about positivity and aura, right? Marcus has that. I mean, you can't not smile if you're around Marcus Grant.
For sure. No, he's a wonderful guy. Those all 3 of those guys are amazing. Great answer on that. And when you say, bringing people together, you put together that marathon, in the off season, right before the season started get going. You brought a lot of people together on that. And I was privileged to get on there. That was fun. What was that experience like for you?
It was thrown together. So here's what's funny. I was trying just to do something before the season with the Rotowire stream. And the goal was I was going to get about 10 people, 15 minutes each, and let's just have some fun and talk some football and kick off the season. So Alan Soslowski, who does a lot of our social media stuff and YouTube work, he puts up a graphic to promote the show. 50 fantasy analysts. I'm like, you're a jerk. He goes, what do you mean? I just did out there to get no. I go, now I got to get 50 people. And the show is going live in 5 days or something like this. So right away, I just start reaching out to people I know. Love to have you on. And we had 50 people. We got 50 people. I had to do 5-minute spots because the whole thing was, it's just me. And at some point I got to get up and eat, or sometimes I might have to go to the restroom. So I had to be cognizant of that. But this is going to grow now. I think the marathon, instead of one sit down long marathon, I think we're going to do a week of, segments that are going to become the week marathon, but it might be like 3 hours a day for 5 days. And I want to get people on I want people on longer. I want everybody on 10 minutes, not 5, because I do a lot of 5 just to get that many people in, right? But I want to do it longer. I want more people involved. Just, again, learning from Bob. Share the little platform I have. I want to share it with more.
That's awesome. A cool event. I love the ideas you got going forward on that. Definitely, and again, an honor to be a part of that, and fun to watch, as a spectator. And I'm a big consumer of fantasy content, and it was a lot of fun. Even those short little spurts, that was actually fun because it's just constantly changing the energy and getting to see new faces. And I can imagine for people that just aren't really aware of a lot of the outside content creators outside of like major platforms, if they found that show and watched that, you're getting exposed to so many great people. So I love it. Keep that stuff up for sure. Now, when it comes to advice for people that want to get more involved in the fantasy industry, what do you have for people out there?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is there is a potential audience for every type of analyst. There are some that go super in depth. There are some that bring a more humorous approach. There are some that are all numbers. There is an audience for you out there. So what I tell you is approach fantasy sports the way that you love. Whatever size your audience becomes, it'll be the perfect audience for you. That's the first thing. Also, it's fine to model some of those aspects of your work or the way you're going to promote yourself based on others, but don't lose yourself in the process. Don't see I have to be like this analyst. Take some things away. We all do that, and that's great. That's complimentary. You like the way somebody intro something, great. But then make sure you don't lose yourself in the process, because that's why people are going to love you, because you are who you are. But we all do gain from others. And remember, we all want to be competitive and we all want to be the best we could be. But seriously, don't waste your time putting down others who do things differently than you. There's room for everybody. In a way, we're competing with everybody, but in a way, there's enough to go around for me. The fin industry is still growing. And another one, most of the people, and we talked about this earlier, most of the people in the industry, they work very hard, and most of them are humble. They're also kind and generous with their time. I don't see a lot of people overtaken by ego. So that's a recipe for finding fulfillment in fantasy sports. And finally, whenever you think you've arrived, and that's whatever it means to you, keep doing the things that got you there and keep raising your level.
That's great advice. That is absolutely on point. I love it. That's a good one. Well, Jim, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to share before we close things out?
I wanted to say that I appreciate you, Kevin Murray. When I met you at that King's Classic, you just were so gracious to people in the room. I could tell what you were about, and I knew of you before, but to meet you in person, that was great. And to know that you're bringing in different people, introducing them to the fantasy world, I just think that's a great act of service. It's who you are. And like I talk about, being yourself and who you are, that's a big part of what you do. And so thank you for doing this. And again, you bring people together, and you're what fantasy football is about.
Hey, well, I appreciate those kind words. I just love celebrating this great game, and the people in it. I found this community through a few different ways, and it opened my mind up to just how amazing this group of people are. Right, so celebrating the game and celebrating the people within it is an honor, and I appreciate those kind words. And like I said, I can see you stand out, at the expo as just such a great guy that just wants to meet people and connect. So it's an honor to have you on here. Tell everybody where they can find you.
The easy place. Media. Yeah, the easy place. If you're on the X at Jim Coventry NFL. It always tells you what I have going on. If you have Sirius XM, I'm on the weekends, 1 to 3 on Saturdays, 9 to 10 if you're awake on Sundays. Rotowire, obviously subscription, so maybe that's not everybody's cup of tea. But again, a TikTok. People edit my videos. I told you this earlier. I'm not the editor, so that's fine. But yeah, but Jim Coventry NFL, pretty much across the board is where you find me.
Definitely follow Jim. He's bringing great content. Whoever's editing the videos knows what they're doing. It's great content, and he's a great guy. So make sure you're following him. And again, thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see what is next for you, my friend.
Again, thank you for having me, and everybody have a great day.
All right, I'll see you in Canton.
Yes, 100% on that one.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Football Unlimited podcast. Until next time, be sure to follow and subscribe to all of FFU's social media accounts for daily content.